Welcome back to another Sunday episode of Mystery Garage. In today's episode, the Blue Rabbit is back. We got some work to do on it. That's the ABA swapped Rabbit. We had it here a little while ago doing some fuel system work, but it's back again. Needs exhaust, battery relocation, a little bit of wiring, and some other odds and ends so we can get it back to the owner and he can start ripping it around. Let's get to work. Again, welcome back to another episode of the Mystery Garage. If you're new to the channel, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you've been around since the beginning, thank you very much for all your support. We're having a lot of fun. If you're not currently subscribed to the channel, highly recommend it because we drop 2 episodes a week where we get to work on projects just like these. So if you remember when this car was here last time, it was here for a bunch of fuel work. It had a beer keg for a fuel system. We ended up putting all back to fresh OEM stuff. That's all ready to go. But there's some other work needed. We cut the exhaust off in that episode because it had a pretty terrible exhaust thrown on it. We got a brand new fresh exhaust to go on it today, aftermarket one from Tectonic Tuning, as well as we're going to work on a battery relocation kit. So for any of you guys who want to learn how to move your battery from the front to the back, we're going to go over all that today. And also, there is some other odds and ends the owner would like me to take a look at before we give the car back. So first things first, let's turn this car around and start working on that exhaust. All right, the car's up in the air. If you can remember from last time, we put in this brand new fuel tank, and because of the way it was set up, the exhaust system actually cut through part of where the tank should be. So we ended up cutting out the exhaust, but we did leave a good chunk here. So I'm gonna have to cut it really close to the downpipe, way back here you can see, where we're gonna splice in the new exhaust. But first things first, I'd like to lay it all out and see what we're working with here. So again, we got this exhaust system from Tectonic Tuning. Again, no sponsorship whatsoever, but I really do love their products. I use a lot of them. They're in Sheridan, Oregon. And I just highly recommend their stuff. I love giving them my support because they make a lot of really good, affordable stuff for these chassis, for upgrades and that sort of thing. So just highly recommend you taking a look at their stuff. Really good. So anyway, what we're gonna do is we will pull this exhaust system out of the box, lay it all out, make sure I'm pretty happy that we got all the parts and everything came with it, which I'm assuming it will, but it's better to see it laid out first and then start working on getting it, put it into the car. All right, we got the exhaust system all laid out. Tailpipe, muffler, there's a Borla option there. Over the axle, rear beam, tucked under the tank, and then up to the front. It's pretty simple stuff. It's all a very, very nice kit. Now, TT offers a large variety of options here. You can go a couple different size options. You can go stainless steel. You can go stainless steel muffler, aluminized pipe, stainless steel pipe, stainless steel muffler, all kinds of stuff here. So lots of options with them. I think they offer Borla and Magnaflow, I believe, are the 2 other options for the actual silencing box at the back. But again, take a look at their stuff. Highly recommend it. This is the kit this owner went with. I really like it. Nice setup. I believe it's 2.5 inch, I think, maybe 2 1/4, I forget. But nevertheless, what we're going to try and do here actually is I am going to fit it. Then I'm actually going to weld it rather than using these clamps. I may just leave one clamp here because it's a bracket also used to hang it, so I might just weld on the tailpipe, attach the muffler to the pipe with a clamp, but then weld all the way up to the front. Just less moving pieces, it's a cleaner install. For a lot of different reasons, it's a better way to go. So we're gonna end up doing that, I think. But first and foremost, I just got to lay it all in the car. Again, lay it all in loosely, figure out where I want to cut and how I want to join into the pipe that currently exists, and we'll get all that sorted out. So it does come with instructions in case anybody's a little bit uncomfortable with doing it themselves. TT is great with always including, you know, layout instructions and that sort of stuff. And again, system, Tectonic Tuning, great company. Do a good job of kind of supporting our industry or our fun, our hobby. So it's important to support guys who support us. So just highly recommend their stuff. Anyway, what we're gonna do is how I always install these exhausts is I throw it in the car, no clamps or nothing, set it all up, make sure it sits in there nice. I'm happy with it, mark it up. You know, I use rotation marks and that sort of thing to make sure I'm happy with how it's laid out. You wanna kind of size up the pipe, the tailpipe, make sure it fits in the hole properly, that sort of thing. On that point, actually, this car, if you don't notice, has actually had the tailpipe cutout deleted. So we might run into a bit of an issue trying to size that up. We might have to dip it down a little bit, we'll see. But if you go to the factory rear apron on a Mk1, you have this cutout here for the exhaust to come out of. So this car's had that shaved, but nevertheless, we'll figure out the solution there when the time comes. But let's go ahead and hang as much of this as we can underneath the car and see where it kind of mates up with the current exhaust system. All right, so we got update time. Let me show you what I've done so far in the climate of the car here. Now, I'm sure that this exhaust system in every situation doesn't need to be modified, but in this case, I did need to do two modifications. One, I needed to modify it to fit the original downpipe because the owner of the car at some point is gonna upgrade the downpipe. So what it has there is just downpipe and a couple connections that were on the previous exhaust system. What I did do is I welded on a little union that allows it to slip over the current pipe because the pipe was exactly the same size. So I ended up just welding on a little bit and I painted it with high heat exhaust tape paint so that way it doesn't rust in the future. And then I put the exhaust on, which everything's fitting pretty good. Let me just go around the tire here and show you what I got going on here. So there we are. You can kind of see the exhaust obviously comes straight up, tucks over the axle. Let me see if I can gauge that for you. There you go. Tucks over the axle, comes out back. Now the challenge, the other modification I need to make is right here. Now talking to the owner, we both kind of agreed we don't want to be hacking this up. He did want to have an exhaust at the back as opposed to a diesel type, which was there before with just a downturn. So what I've done is I've modified the pipe to clear like that. And then I'm just gonna have to change this hanger, which isn't a big deal. So that way it hangs right there. There's not a ton of room to work with, but I wanted to keep it close to the body so we don't have any issues of it being too low, which we got tons of room. Let me move back. There you go. It ends up looking okay. I'm pretty happy with it actually. Probably looks better in person than it does on camera, but you can kind of see the idea we're going for. Going for something a little bit more factory without actually cutting out. Otherwise, we're gonna end up ruining the paint. Then we're gonna have to worry about trying to fix that and make sure we don't have any rust issues, that sort of stuff. So we'll just go, we're gonna go with this setup, which I think is pretty cool, all things considered. And we are ready now for more or less starting to weld and clamp. Everything right now is mock fit, just with zap straps or hangers or whatever I needed to make it work. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure you give it what I call a really good wiggle test to make sure it doesn't bang on anything. We're going to come close to rubbing the tank straps and the body where it takes that corner, and then you're going to run into issues around this can, you know, frame hit here and that sort of stuff. This hanger is perfect. I don't have any issues when I wiggle it. No contact anywhere, so I'm really happy with this. So I've gone ahead and marked it. Where have I marked it? Let's see if I can show you that. You can see right there on the pipe, there's that black line. That's where I'm gonna weld that section, make it all one piece. Then we're gonna leave the TT clamps here. This is the hanger clamp, then you gotta clamp the clamps here. So I'm gonna make this a two-piece essentially, this part all one piece, and then the rear all one piece. I will be welding this together, and then I'll be moving that hanger so this fits appropriately. But that's where we are right now, so I'm gonna keep going ahead, and we should be done this in a few minutes. All right, update time. We are all done with the exhaust, and I am very happy with how it turned out. Let's take a look at it. So we got, right here you can see the clearance. It's dialed in really nice. Sticks to the car, really nice. Very happy with it, and considering we don't have a cutout, I think it turned out pretty good. And then underneath the car, again, you do not have to weld this kit. You don't have to cut like I did, but again, I'm going for a very tight fit and finish. I wanted to make sure, you know, I always prefer to weld my exhausts on. The only clamp I'm using is the one that's mounting it to the downpipe currently, so that way when he gets a new downpipe, he can just swap it out without having to cut or grind or anything. And then this one right here, which holds the muffler to the pipe. This one here is the only clamp I'm using. This one obviously is the bracketry to hold it up, but this is the only clamp in the whole system, and this is done to make it two-piece, so the back tail box section can be taken off from the main pipe if ever need to be serviced or changed or anything like that. But you can see in this job, we've done a new tank, new exhaust, all the way out the back, which is looking awesome, by the way. But we got a couple more things to do yet still. One of those being, we can't fire it up to listen to the exhaust until I take care of the battery relocation, which we're gonna put in the back of the car here. All right, so why a battery relocation and what's the purpose of it? Well, a couple reasons. One, when this car was completed and painted, they actually cut out the battery tray and never put it back. So they still have the wiring there for the ABA to hook up to the battery, but unfortunately the battery currently right now was bungee corded in there. It also aesthetically looks better when you don't have a battery in the front, and for those who want to argue moving your battery to the back moves some weight to the back and helps with weight transference within the car, just to kind of even things out, because the back end of these cars don't weigh a whole ton. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a battery relocation. So to simplify it, basically, is this black lead right here, and everybody's car is going to be a little bit different. This black lead, you can see, goes right to the main terminal on the starter. So this is obviously your battery hot for your starter. This right here is the car's wiring hot. So this goes to the ECU and the wiring of the car, and goes just kind of up and through there into the fuse block and that sort of thing. On the ground side of things, very similar. This is the ground or negative, or if you're in Europe, it's earth. This is the ground that goes to the chassis and then down to the engine mount, which goes to the engine. So you're grounding both the engine, the chassis, everything together with the battery. And then just like this terminal lead for the ECU, here's your ground or earth for the ECU. So that's kind of how we got this going on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a place to mount this cable. So we're going to have basically, I don't know if I like this mounting location. I'll find something a little bit more inconspicuous that goes onto the chassis rather than something quite so obvious. So we'll relocate this cable, we'll cut this end off, we'll ground the chassis, and then in the back where we relocate the battery, we'll ground the battery to the chassis in the rear, so that way the entire chassis is grounded, and we'll find a location for this wire as well, so we can deal away with this part. For this portion here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little lead that's right here. We're actually going to hook this little one up to the main terminal on the starter, which powers the ECU. We're going to get rid of this power lead, and we're going to run a fresh brand new lead from here. I got 16 feet of cable. We're only going to use about 12 feet of it. We're going to go from here right to the battery in the back. So the battery will bring power right to here, and this wire will be relocated here as well. It will really clean this up, so both of these wires won't exist anymore. So bear with me here. If you can imagine, none of this wiring is there. It will really clean up the bay. So let's take a look at the kit that I got. So for the battery relocation, I sourced this Taylor unit, which is very appropriately priced. So what you get is basically a full relocation kit. You get an aluminum battery box, hold downs, you get 16 feet of cable, and a bunch of other bits. So we'll break into this. I also got some terminals to end the power wires properly to the starter, as well as to the ground, just in case we didn't currently have ones that worked. And the owner of the car sourced a brand new yellow top Optima. So this is the package we need to be able to do the relocation of the battery box. So let's break into the box real quick. Again, this kit is fairly price conscious. I believe it was just over $200 Canadian for the kit. This is obviously in aluminum. It's got stamped on it, but this has a peel-off cover that will peel off later. All the wires you're going to need, already with the ends on it properly. A bag with a bunch of hold downs, bolts, cable ties, grommets, that kind of stuff. You got a vent hose. We won't need that with Optima, but I'll hook it up anyways, just in case down the road they choose a different battery type. Some hold down bars. And the aluminum battery box itself. So what my plan here with this box is that if you remember from the last episode on this blue car, we have this strange ugly tub left from underneath that beer keg fuel system. And I didn't finish it off because I didn't really know what the owner wanted, what we were going to do with it. So my plan is to pretty this all up a lot, is by hopefully taking this battery box and actually sinking it in to this hole. I bought it so it fits really nice in this space, like it fits within the wheel tub. And my goal was, what I'm thinking, is to cut so this box can sink. It's not going to be floor level, otherwise it's going to poke out way too far down below, but I'm hoping that I can probably make it work where at least maybe this much of it is sticking up in the back, which would make a really clean look. And then what I can do is I can finish off this metal to the side of this to make it all look really, really nice and more or less meant to be. So I'm going to take out my pen and tape and start drawing some lines and cutting, and we'll see where we end up. Okay, you saw what I did. There's the hole that I'm left with. I have a plan in my head that's really hard to kind of explain, but what I'm not doing is wrecking anything more in the car. This wheel tub was already terrible anyways, and what I'm trying to do is make the best of it for now. Down the road, when the owner is ready to do something with this, you can just unscrew this whole piece, pull it all out, and then redo it. But for now, I'm just gonna make the best of this. I got some scrap metal here on the ground that I just cut out. I'm gonna try and fix all this up, and I will be back in just a few minutes, or what will be seconds for you guys, after I spend probably about 2 hours of time just trying to figure this out to make it all work nice. All right, I know I said it'd only be about 2 hours later, but it's considerably more time than that. It's about 2 days later. Let me show you why. So I started rebuilding the wheel tub in there to try and accept that battery box, and I started playing around with it, and then I went and redid the part that went around the fuel neck that I actually cut out in a previous episode. And then I wanted to spend some time on securely mounting that battery box. Well, the unfortunate part was no matter how I tried to conceptualize it, it just wasn't working. So this happened. I ended up cutting it out. The reason why I cut it out was I just couldn't live with it. I couldn't be proud of sticking the battery box in this thing. It just bothered me from the day I took that tank out, and I know the owner probably feels the same way as I do, so I threw this whole thing in the bin. You can see the part that I actually constructed to go around that fuel neck. I spent a great deal of time doing that, but at the end of the day, I slept on it. I was like, you know what, I'm not proud of that. I can't let that leave my garage. So I ripped the whole thing out, and here we are. So I went ahead and rebuilt a what is now just a frame currently, but it's the cutout that still exists. I didn't cut anything else out. I just wanted to fix it. The problem, a couple of the problems we were left with is, one is this floor is a little bit weak because all the support of the wheel tub was cut out. So I ended up putting a piece of metal, which obviously we're going to paint this whole thing, but the piece of metal that goes across that grabs the frame on either side to really strengthen this. And now this battery box is securely mounted. I've got a little frame I built that went all the way around it. The battery box is inset like I planned. And you can see when you go behind the car, it's a little bit race spec. But you can see when you dip down, you can see a little bit of that battery box. But you're not really gonna see it when it's driving because the car will be considerably lower. But it's definitely higher than the axle or the main beam. So it's never gonna ever rub on anything. It's considerably inbound to the car, like it's within the tire rotation, so it's never ever going to hit anything, so we don't have to worry about that. I kind of engineered it that way. Anyway, so inside the car we have the box, and I went ahead and already wired it because it's pretty plain and simple. I didn't want to show you guys any of this fabrication stuff, more or less because you're never going to run into this problem with your Mk1. This is only because of what the previous owner of this car did to this car that I had to modify this. So it's very one-off. But I can tell you, after having done this, you can see from the side how I mounted that battery box. After having done this now, this would be a really cool way to put in a high-end fuel system in kind of a race rabbit. So down the road, I may do something similar to this in my VR6 project. If I want to do some high-end surge tanks and that sort of thing for a fuel system in the future, this is a pretty cool way to do it. Anyway, inside this battery box, here we go, inside the battery box. Currently, it's just kind of sitting there, the battery, but I've wired it up. So underneath this carpet, this ground strap goes to the bumper mount. So it's got a solid ground there. The positive wire goes up underneath, across the car, and then up through the firewall up front. And I picked a portion in there to come down. Now it looks for some reason like it's tight, but it's not. There's plenty of slack in that. It's just because I've secured it so it doesn't rub on anything. You really want to be careful when you're running power wire through the car, that every place you're running it is very secure under the car, but it's not going to rub or chafe. You never want to run it under the car either, in case you ever bottom it out or scratch it. You never be able to notice, and then it's going to start shorting. So you want to make sure the track that you follow with that wire is a very secure one. So like I said, I mounted it to that starter pole. I got rid of the old battery clamps that were there, and I wired everything a little bit neater. I moved one of the grounds to this part on the frame here, because again, this same frame is where the ground is mounted in the back to the battery, so keeps everything succinct and cleans it up a little bit. I am going to do something with that little ground strap afterwards that cleans it up and moves it around, but I'm also going to finish out the rest of this off camera. Again, I'm going to tin. You can see I built supports to be able to tin that on both sides and really cover it in. But anyways, the reason why I did all that is the battery is now properly relocated in a pretty cool way that's going to end up benefiting the car owner significantly. Now it's time to hear this thing fire up. That's it for this week, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you like the exhaust install with the battery relocation. I'm just going to do a little bit more work in the car. Obviously got to finish up that tub in the back, and I'm going to do a little bit of electrical work inside the car, and the owner's ready to pick it up. So hopefully in the future we might show some ripping videos of us driving this car around. But thanks for watching. And until next time, guys, take care.